Here with JC, doing JC Unplugged with the staff, episode 14, I believe. We're safe here. We didn't get hit by Hurricane Matthew. It actually took a little detour from where we're located, so we got really lucky. Very lucky. It could have been really bad. So, thank God, right?
Yeah, our hearts go out to everybody in the islands in North Florida and everybody who got hit. It's a hard thing to see that kind of loss of life due to one of these hurricanes, but you know, our hearts and prayers go out to them.
For sure. Okay, question number one. We'll get right into it here. What are some of your favorite glute development exercises?
Glute development exercise, hip hinging. My number one favorite is something like an RDL. Right off the bat, closed chain, you're standing. Great variations are staggered stance with cables. So as soon as you go into that staggered stance, you're doubling up the load on one hip, so you don't need to go crazy. So for people with back necks where 300 pounds per skier, if you take up on an angle and you go staggered stance, two hands on a cable, you drive the glutes and the hamstrings through the roof. You don't compress the vertebral column, and you don't really have a whole lot of pulling downward on the shoulders, which brings that trap and brings that skull down and really compresses the neck. So those hip hinging, the cable deadlifts are probably my favorite now. With the big heavy stuff, the big deadlifts are awesome. But also the bridge, the Contreras bridge. Brett Contreras, a good friend of mine, has become known for the glute bridge, which you put your shoulders on a bench, okay? And you put a bar right here, and then you just drive the bridge up. That's an awesome exercise. If you don't have that kind of facility and those kinds of tools, it can get really pretty good with just a 20-pound ball if you go to a single leg. So a single leg bridge can, for 10, 15 reps, can wake you up. And if you put a 20-pound or a little bit of or a plate or a dumbbell right here across your belly, you can get good loads there. So those two basically are my favorites.
Okay. All right. What do you consider the best technique when measuring for body fat percentages?
Body fat percentages, I like skin folds, but the same person has to do it. You know, there's nothing like skin folds, man. I mean, if you want to go DEXA, you know, that's kind of the gold standard, and probably they have other tools available. But they all present problems. Either they're too expensive, not everybody has them, or they're hard to do. Like, for example, underwater weighing used to be the gold standard, but to get accurate underwater weighing, you have to have the right subject. If they're scared of holding their breath, if they're scared of water, if they're scared of being submerged, boom. If they can't clear their lungs, the thing's not even accurate. So, and who's got an underwater tank these days? Well, body pod. All of those are a slave to the regression equations that they use. Bioelectrical impedance, hydration issues, and regression equations that are used to estimate. So when you look at it at being accurate, and more importantly, knowing where the deposit areas are, because a lot of times somebody will lose fat from the arms really quick, and then the love handles will be an issue, or vice versa. You know what the pattern of this person is, where they're losing all the fat. So skin folds for me are the most accurate, the most functional. They're not always practical. For example, if it's male and taking females skin folds, and if you're doing a lot of them, then you can get into issues of what to wear, where to do it, and all that stuff. So skin folds and circumference measurements. For me, for personal trainers, that's your best bet.
Okay, question number 3 here. What advice would you give a heavier or overweight individual who's trying to get into running?
Depends on how overweight they are, but lose weight is first. So, why? Because you have to understand, you cannot use running to drop weight if the running is going to kill you before you lose the weight. You know? I mean, that's how I accelerated my arthritis. We got up to 230, 240, I said, well, let me get down to 211, 210, running. Well, guess what? I'm running at 240, my knees blew up. And from then on, it was just downhill. Then it was the hips and all that stuff. So I'm not saying that running will cause arthritis. What I'm saying is that pounding and the injury and the overuse stuff at joints when you're weighing 30, 40 pounds more, can actually kick in a condition, an inflammation condition. So, first thing you do is if you want to enjoy running, drop weight so you can enjoy it. Do not use running to drop weight, especially if you're 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. Go to an elliptical, go to a VersaClimber, go to an air diet, go to a bike, go to that, save your lower body, save your extremities, sometimes your back, all right? Drop weight so then you can enjoy running in any other sport. Like you don't use tennis to get to drop weight. You know, oh, you know, I used to be thin when I was playing tennis. Now let me go play tennis so I can be thin again. Wrong. Now you're moving 40 pounds more in those low positions and your back and your hips and everything gets demolished. No, you get in shape so you can enjoy your hobby or your recreational activity. You drop weight so you can enjoy running, which is one of those recreational activities.
Real quick, follow up on that. What about if it's somebody that's put on muscle mass?
What about if it's somebody who's put on muscle? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know, what's in the backpack that you're carrying is irrelevant to the point that you're carrying the backpack. All right, and your shin splints and your metatarsals and all of your joints that are involved are going to respond to the weight, not the quality. And it's sometimes even worse if you put on muscle, because now not only have you put on 40 pounds, you put on more horsepower. So you're going to spinning the wheels, you know, of this Ferrari with bicycle tires on much faster. No, I'd rather have a Ferrari, big Ferrari that only goes 5 miles an hour. That's the only way you're going to save those tires. Okay, you put more horsepower on top of that, and you're going to have twice the problems.
Okay. Where are we at here? How do you address nutrition for clients with special nutritional needs? Vegan, paleo, vegetarian.
What? Okay, those special needs. I thought special needs might be they had celiac disease or they had diabetes.
I guess
or
there's
they had
people that choose to
limit what they eat.
Exactly, that's right.
Well, that's not a big deal. So, you know, so if they want to be vegetarians, they're vegetarians. No, that's nothing. So don't eat meat. Don't eat whatever you don't like to eat or whatever you can't eat. I don't have, you know, it's, I still have the same recommendations, you know. Take their body weight, add a 0 on it, and that's kind of their base, and then depending on activity, you can add a little bit more, subtract a little bit less, and that's it. So if you want to eat tofu instead of beef, then have tofu instead of beef. If you're a lacto-ovo and you want milk, then do that. If you can do whey, you don't need to eat meat. Just do, you know, 150 grams of whey protein powder and a bunch of salad goods, and you're good to go. So I have no issues. I mean, that's easy. You just substitute a scoop or 2 scoops of protein powder for your meat. That's it. Easy. Easy, easy, easy. Now, if you're like, I don't have whey, I don't have this, and I don't have that, then what do you have? Nuts? Okay, great. Then have nuts, and then you do your beans, and then you hope to get enough protein that way. So, I don't go too crazy over that. That to me is easy. You know, that's your bag. You want to limit yourself like that, then go ahead.
You don't get very excited about it.
No, I don't get too excited about the nutrition. You know, because nutrition is pretty easy. You end up at the same dead end as people can't pull the trigger on the nutrition programs because they're addicted to food, they're addicted to sugar. They got, you know, you can have an addiction to a chemical or you can have an addiction to a process. All right? The only problem is that addiction to processes have led now to an addiction to food, primarily sugar. So most of the stuff, I've said it before in 50 million scenarios, most of the problems that come in through here are addictions. Addiction to processes, and that is quenched and medicated oftentimes by food, okay? And you can't deal with that via a diet. There's no way. Because they'll be able to pull the trigger on that diet for a month, 2, 3, 4, and sooner or later, if they don't deal with the underlying mechanism that makes them anxious, which they quench with sugar or food, okay, to alter the chemicals in their brains, which happens, all right? Then, as soon as the stress comes out or the trigger comes out, boom, they get off the diet, and then they rebound. And then up and down, and you mess up with the thyroid, T4 to T3 conversion gets all altered, and it's, the yo-yo stuff is there again. And then you think food and nutrition education is the name of the game. It's not the name of the game. If it was, we have enough nutrition information to make everybody here thin and healthy, and everybody here is not thin and healthy. As a matter of fact, the more stress we're under, the fatter people are getting. The more stress we're under, what's happening? People are getting fatter. Why? Because food is less available or more available? No. As people get stressed out, it's not a miracle, and it's not a wonder what's happening. Now you've got sweet stuff everywhere. Every gas station, every store, every pharmacy, boom, sweet, 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 sweet. Stress, sweet, bam, self-medication. 50% of the people now are overweight in the country. I don't care, 50, 45, what's the number that we're going to pay attention to? You know, people are getting fatter and fatter and fatter. So, I don't get too excited about the whole nutrition because I know it's not nutrition.
Okay. This question, actually I got emailed, it was emailed to me from North Africa. So, you might be a little bit biased here, but which university is the best for exercise science program?
Our university is the best. I graduated from Florida Atlantic University, okay, right across the street from my house, two blocks over from the gym. And is it a strong program? No, it's not a strong program. Has it produced awesome students? Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has. The president of the NSCA, FAU alumni. Vice president of the NSCA, alumni. Multiple members of conference committees in the NSCA, FAU alumni. Presenters by the droves in the various conferences, FAU alumni. It's not a known, nationally known school in exercise science. Okay, it's got no eminent researcher working out of there in exercise science. If you're the type of student like me, where you're asked for a 5-page paper and 10 references, and you turn back a 25-page paper with 55 references, if you're that kind of student, when you leave the program, I don't care if it's an online program, you're going to kick ass. But if you're a graduate, of one of the eminent departments with an eminent researcher, and you come out, you sit on your ass and expect that degree to come and bring you stuff, all right? I'm going to eat you alive every day, twice on Sunday. So, I always say the student makes the program. The program doesn't make the student. So, get your education the closest, easiest, and cheapest way possible. And when they give you a project, learn instead of just doing it to hand it in so you can get your paper. Now, actually make the going to school a process where you grow, and when you get out, produce. You do that, it doesn't matter where you graduate from.
You're more passionate about
Got that?
the nutrition.
I'm more passionate about that than nutrition because that's real. Nutrition is this. Nutrition is this.
All right, last question. Why do some athletes use long warm-ups for sprints?
I don't know. I've been in that conundrum for a while. Johannes and I were having that conversation. I know Chris and I have had that conversation too. And it doesn't make sense a lot of times because you don't see 100-meter runners jogging a mile or 2 miles before they run 100 meters or sprinting. Bam, 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 bam. That's 10 seconds. But you do see in some sports, okay, like swimming and like sprint, velodrome cycling, like track cycling, these guys will sit on their bikes for 30, 40 minutes. And in the case of swimming, what's a standard warm-up for 100 meters? 2,000?
2,000 to 3,000.
2,000 to 3,000 meters. I would drown if I had to swim that to save my life. I would make it. These guys are using that to warm up for a freestyle event that lasts under 55 seconds. So you're going, damn, why doesn't a quarter miler do the same thing? Or a miler, do the same thing? They don't do the same thing. So why does it work for these guys? And I've asked them, I said, well, why? And they've all said, I've tried it with, and I tried it without that prolonged warm-up. And without the prolonged warm-up, I feel crampy, I just don't perform, I shut down. So, hypothesis, maybe that 30, 40 minutes, what I think is happening, may happen, is it vasodilates them. And when it has the pipes open, when the moment does come and you're going 55 seconds all out, that's hydrogen's going to be going through the roof, you can get more blood to the muscles at that time. So what I'm thinking is you can get more blood to the muscles if you're already pre-dilated before one of those 1 minute, 40-second, 90-second events, you know, balls to the walls. That's what I think. Other than that, I don't know what other reason.
And wouldn't the question be, what's the time frame? 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, 40 minutes?
We don't know.
Yeah.
And what's the mechanism? We don't even know. I'm thinking that it may be vasodilation. What if it's a buffering system that we don't even know about? What if it's a blood protein we haven't discovered yet? What if it's something else? I don't know. What if the ritual of warm-up is so dominant that the whole sport agrees? Because normally you have an outlier here or there. There's no outliers. Everybody's doing the same thing. You know, and people have said, I've tried, and I can't. I stiffen up. I can't move. So they know from practice. I've always said, practice leads science. Okay, I can look at common sense, but my common sense is just common, and it's sense. I can't sense everything, and I sure as hell can't sense what I don't know. And there's a lot of things we don't know. You know, food allergies, compounds, hormones, receptors, this situation here, buffering systems. We don't know all of that. We don't know. We may know 5%. The other 95 we don't know. So you got to go with practice, and sometimes you'll find out within your lifetime. Sometimes you won't, and you got to be okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm okay.
All right, guys, we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the next episode of JC Unplugged. Take care.
Stay safe.